Common misconception. I don't like Flash because it doesn't look natural. Well, in this video, I'm going to address this misconception and teach you that Flash can look either natural or dramatic. And I'm going to give you 4 steps to getting your light right and to your intention with each photograph you take. My name is Pi, and I'm one of the founders of Lynn and Jersa Photography and SLRlounge.com. We're teaming up with Adorama to bring you a new series of photography tutorials called Master Your Craft right here on Adorama TV. So let's dive in. What's up, friends? It is so good to be back here on Adorama TV. Thank you guys for having me. Thanks for tuning in. And what we're talking about now is this common misconception when it comes to Flash photography. So a lot of us, we don't like jumping into Flash because we desire a more natural look to our images, and we think that Flash can't be that. In fact, when we think of Flash, what most often comes to mind are kind of 2 things. One, we obviously think of this kind of overall direct flash type look, right? And honestly, direct flash, when used correctly, when used stylistically, can still look great, and it has its own look and appeal on its own. But we know that it's direct flash, right? Either way, you know it's direct flash, it's not natural. The other thing that we typically think about when it comes to Flash photography is shots like this, images that are more dramatic. So with these more dramatic images, we're seeing our backgrounds very dark, and we very noticeably can see light being added to the subjects in the photograph. Either way, once again, there's nothing wrong with this stylistically, and it has its own appeal all by itself, but it's not what you would describe as a natural photograph. So in this video, I want to talk about exactly how you can get to either look, whether you're going for natural or dramatic, and I'm going to give you 4 steps in getting there. So first, let's go ahead and reference a couple slides. These are actually from Lighting 1 and Lighting 2. Okay, so from our SLR Lounge workshops, we have this slide, and I want you guys to internalize this. You can screenshot it, do whatever you'd like. But what you see here is when we're balancing Flash for dramatic effect, so we want to get that kind of poppy look, the ambient exposure is pulled down. When we're going for that kind of a look, well, what's happening here, if you look on this little sliding scale, is we go to the left, we pull our ambient light down, and we bring our flash power up. That's all we're really saying here. So if you want to create a dramatic image, you're going to pull the in-camera exposure down, and you're going to increase the flash power that you're adding to your shot. And when we get that, we see images like the examples down below, okay? So where you have a subject that's very deep in the shadows because we take that base exposure, that dark ambient light shot, and we pump in then a lot of light to bring our subject out. In every one of these cases, super dark scene, we pump a lot of light into our subjects. Okay, great. So the next thing is, well, what about when we want to get a more kind of natural look to our images? In fact, what if we want to create natural looking light, whether it be golden hour sun flares, whether it be, kind of just natural light that falls on the skin, whatever it is. Well, we go to the opposite side on this slide. So when you look at this slide, now we're leaving the ambient exposure in camera to be brighter. And because we're leaving the frame to be quite bright, we're pulling the flash power down. So we're letting the flash power be darker, right? So when you look at the before and after in each of these, you'll notice that the ambient exposure is very bright already, and each image shows just a little bit of flash being added. And what I want to do is kind of dive into this so you guys can see it just a little bit closer, right? So when we look at these images where we're going for a natural look, your base exposure is already very bright. This is 1/800th of a second at f2 and ISO 50. And notice that when we add flash, it's literally like a half stop, maybe 1 stop of light that's coming in directionally over the shot. It could almost be a reflector. But the benefit of using flash is that you're not going to cause people to squint. There's a lot of benefits, outside of using like a reflector, constant light to kind of fill light. But the main one is that you can get as much power as you want. You have more control over it, and it's not going to cause people to squint when you put a lot of light on them like a reflector would. But that's the important piece, is that you see where those baseline exposures were, right? Same thing here. So in this scene, this is actually coming from Lighting 4. And in Lighting 4, we're teaching how to mimic every form of natural light, from window light to golden hour to flares to direct light to midday sun, all of it. We want you guys to be able to understand flash and that potential to be able to create sunlight essentially anywhere. So here, we're actually looking at a flashed photograph. The base exposure is 1/2 of a second, f1.8 and ISO 800. It's actually pretty dark. The sun is already set. And now we're popping that flash behind the scene and just kind of barely peeking through the window to kind of flare in. So most of what you're seeing, again, is that natural ambient light. We're using that flash just as a little bit of a flare to kind of convincingly create this golden hour looking effect. Okay, so when we go to the dramatic side, I want you to see kind of a couple examples of this that are full screen beyond what you saw in that little slide. So again, you look at these scenes and you're like, yeah, we definitely pulled down the ambient light exposure. We're leaving things dark and we're putting just a little bit of light into the places that we want to light up, right? So this entire background, his body, everything is left dark. We're putting a flash just a little bit in the areas we want. Same thing in this scene, just a little bit of light exactly where we want it. Okay, so this brings me to our 4 steps, and we're gonna talk through the CAMP framework in this video because it's something you're gonna probably see a lot in all of our videos, whether you're here on Adorama TV, whether you're watching us on SR Lounge, or in our premium content on srloungeworkshops.com. So the CAMP framework is a 4-step systematic approach to dialing in really everything in any scene that you photograph, regardless of what subjects you're shooting. And the first step is the C. So CAMP, C-A-M-P, C stands for composition. This means that before you kind of think about anything, in fact, before you even pick up your camera, I want you to walk the scene, scout, look at different angles, figure out what compositions you like, what angles you like, what are the possibilities in that location. This means that even if you have your subject there, don't feel rushed to just jump into shooting. Take a moment. It doesn't take long. Just convince yourself to slow down a little bit. Take a moment, walk the scene, figure out the composition first. That is step number 1. And I'll always dial in my composition in camera, get an idea of the exact frame that I want before I even touch the exposure or adding light. Step 2. Now you're gonna go to ambient exposure, okay? Ambient exposure means this is where we're gonna set our intention. Now that you understand the exposure balancing to get to a natural versus a dramatic image, before you ever touch the flash, set your intention in the camera. If you want a more natural looking image, you're gonna leave the ambient light brighter, and then you're gonna add in less flash power, right? And if you're aiming for something more dramatic, you're gonna pull that ambient exposure down, and then you're gonna add more flash power. But worry first about that ambient exposure. Set your intention for the shot. Then what I love doing is taking a little test shot with your subject or a test subject in the frame. And from there, we're gonna go to modify or add light. That's step 3. So in this step, we can choose to either modify the existing light via reflectors or other kind of natural light modifiers, or we can choose to add light. In cases of, obviously, we want to add flash, we're gonna be adding light, but start with one. Start with one light, and then if you need more, add another one. So we're gonna begin by adding one light to our scene and then dialing the power setting based on, again, that intention, right? So now we make things a lot more easy because we don't have to constantly guess, oh man, what power do I need, what power? Well, the power is gonna be based upon your ambient exposure. If you set the scene to be very dark, this is the great thing about this. I want you to put this in your pipe and smoke it, okay? Because if you set the scene to be really dark, if your ISO is at 100 or 50 or whatever it is, and you're dialing the ambient exposure down, you automatically know you're gonna be working with higher power settings on your flashes. This is where you're gonna be working at 1/4, 1/2, or even full power. If you are running at high ISOs, well, my general rule of thumb is, kind of has a weird origin behind that whole saying. But either way, that general kind of rule there is start with the inverse of what your ISO is. What that means is simple. If you're at 1600 ISO, put your flash to 1/16th power and start there. If it's too much, dial it down. If it's too little, dial it up. Easy peasy. If you're at ISO 100, start at 1/1. Dial it down or dial it up. When in the sun, 1/1. So again, in bright scenes, if you're dialing things down, you're just gonna go max flash power. If you're going with a very subtle amount of light because you're dialing your ambient exposure to be more on the natural side and things are more bright, then bring the flash power down. Start at 1/8, 1/16, 1/32. Start these lower power settings and adjust from there. This way, you guys don't have to memorize anything. You don't have to memorize flash power for different apertures. I hate math. Why would we want to get on a shoot and be doing math? We're artists, be creative, and all you gotta do is just kind of start in that rough area. It'll take you 1, maybe 2 shots to get it dialed in. But after that one light, and I know I'm holding 2 fingers up, but one light, after one light is set up, then you're gonna set up your second light if you actually need one. And then after 2 lights are set up, if you need a 3rd light, you're gonna set up a 3rd light if actually necessary. Just start with 1. Last step, step number 4, is once your light is set up, you've already decided your composition, your ambient exposure, your light power, and everything is good. Now we get to the step of photograph. This is where your mind should be focused on posing, on directing, on getting the details right, and getting the shot exactly the way you want it. And the beauty about this is now once you're on step 4, you're not thinking about anything from a technical standpoint because all of that has been dialed in. So now you can let your mind focus specifically on just right brain functions, being creative, being in the moment, and getting the best possible shot. When you get to a new scene, you start the camp framework all over again, and you're gonna do it again. So that's it. I love talking through all this stuff with you guys, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. If you did, I'd love for you guys to subscribe to the Adorama TV channel. You guys can leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about the video. I'm gonna do my best to respond. In addition, if you want more of the best A to Z education available, please check out srloungeworkshops.com. You can also follow us at SR Lounge, and you can follow me personally at PyGirsa, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Peace.